Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another monthly stand-up for the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit. I'm so excited to be here today. We have got a ton to talk about, a ton of work that's been going into all the latest goodies this month, but it's so good to see you guys again. Vlad, how have you been?
Yeah, hello. After Oktoberfest, after Halloween, we all woke up in a new era and in an era of new .NET 9 next week. So, yeah.
I'm glad you said that, not something else.
Yeah.
A lot of big things coming
Yeah.
worldwide, but most importantly, .NET 9.
Yeah.
Cliff, how have you been?
Busy, very busy this month. But yeah, it's been good. Just trying to catch up with everything now. So yeah, I'm busy on a client project again, as well as lots of flying. So yeah, just trying to play
Cool.
catch up.
Yeah, it looks like you're in a workshop today. Where are you?
This is I'm in my workshop. Yeah, this is the way I do all the IoT stuff and building an aircraft over there. And yeah, so busy.
You're
So
building
we're
an
moving
aircraft?
things around in the house, so the
Can we see
office
it?
is kind of upside down.
Can can the camera pick up the plane you're building?
It's breaking up. I don't know if it's me or
Oh no. Am I coming in choppy too, Vlad?
is it you, Brandon? I'm not sure it's Brandon. That's
Is it me? Vlad, who do
maybe
you
it's me.
hear good? Because Cliff, you sound
I,
great for me.
I hear both of you very good.
Oh, um,
Okay.
well, might be headphones, Cliff. I know StreamYard will do weird stuff with the audio if you use speakers and no headphones, but
Okay. Stand by.
that's okay. We can get things rolling. I just wanted to see. I just wanted to see the plane in the background. Whoa! So I assume that's the airframe. Well, the .NET Community Stand Up this month will be focusing on planes. Thank you for joining us, everybody. All right, we'll give Cliff a minute to figure out what's going on. I do see you're on mute here in StreamYard, but let's go ahead and load up the agenda. And Cliff, you can chime in and cut me off anytime. But like I mentioned, we've got a bunch of fun stuff. I've shared the link to the agenda here in the YouTube comments, and as always, you can always just head to the Community Toolkit MAUI GitHub repo, click on our wiki, and then here on the right is where you can find this stand-up and every stand-up we've done since, well, ever. So you can always go back in time, find a link to the YouTube video, see what we talked about. But right, so today we've got a bunch of releases coming. Actually, probably tomorrow, I think, is when the last .NET 8 releases of the toolkit will be published. So we've been working really hard. I've put in many days over the past few months on our .NET 9 PRs, which we'll talk about later. But for .NET 8, we wanted to push out two more releases. One for CommunityToolkit.MAUI and one for CommunityToolkit.MAUI.MediaElement. Both have some bug fixes that have merged in since our last release. So the plan is get these out, then we'll merge the .NET 9 PR and release that as soon as we can. We're currently blocked on the .NET 9 PR, but we'll talk about that in a minute. It's a bug in .NET MAUI that they fixed, so shouldn't impact us too much. But let's jump into it. Yeah, George.
Sorry, I can just add that we probably include .NET MAUI maps also in .NET 8 release because today morning we merged a new bug fix, so probably it will also be included in upcoming releases.
That's right. So let's put that in here, and let's see, Maui maps NuGet. I don't know what our latest version is. Maybe Google Toolkit in there. Maui maps 2.0.3. Let's see versions. All right, so this will be 2.0.4. And Gerald promised he would push out all these tomorrow, although we'll have to let Gerald know about the maps package as well. Thanks, Gerald. And if they don't happen, blame Gerald. Just kidding. But right, so yeah, lots of .NET 9 releases coming up. And yeah, George, I was also just looking for James. I actually haven't heard from him. I haven't seen him in Discord today.
He said he was going to be here in about 10 minutes.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, then in that case, since we've been talking about .NET 9, let's check it out, because this has some pretty impactful changes for everybody using the toolkit. So you can see this already, it's a massive PR. I wish it wasn't this hard, but the good news is there's some really good stuff the .NET MAUI team has done in .NET 9, which as library maintainers, we also have to incorporate that. So here, let me share the link in the chat real quick. All right, and then yeah, let's talk about first. We've squeezed in some bug fixes here that are breaking changes as well, but let's just go down the list, because there's a lot of stuff here, and we haven't gotten a chance to talk it out between all of us yet. So please let me know what you guys think, and also in the comments if there's any questions around these or ways we can better document them or explain them. Let us know. Hopefully most of this stuff is expected, although I think there's going to be one in here that probably most people will be surprised by. But enough talking about it. The first breaking change, obviously .NET 8 is no longer supported. The way we've released the toolkit is that every time there's a new version of .NET, we automatically jump to that version. I wish we could support older versions, and honestly, if there's somebody out there in the community who wants to own that, please, let me know. You can come join the team and help merge bug fixes into, say, older releases that support .NET 8. But we're not that big of a team. We're all volunteers, and we just don't have the bandwidth to add backwards compatibility, especially given all the breaking changes in .NET 9, and especially given the fact that .NET MAUI just moves faster than .NET. So .NET MAUI has to update itself, or has to push out an update every time there's a new version of iOS, every time there's a new version of Android. And so as mobile developers, we don't really get this LTS, STS luxury that you might get on your website anyways, because we're always going to have to be on the latest version of .NET MAUI to add support for, say, iOS 18, iOS 18.1, Android 35, all that fun stuff, because eventually Android and iOS will kick our apps out of the App Store if we don't. So those are the reasons why we don't do backwards compatibility with previous .NET versions, but also open to it. So please feel free to reach out to me if anybody's interested in leading that effort. But for now, .NET 8 is no longer supported. And from the pop-up service, we've removed a couple methods. We've talked about this at the stand-ups before, and Sean, who is the father of the pop-up service, I'm sure can explain more. But basically, when we pushed out the pop-up service, we had a couple methods where you could call show pop-up and pass in an instance of your view model. But what we didn't do in show pop-up is automatically assign that view model to your pop-up as its binding context. The reason behind that was basically scope. This method is called show pop-up. It's not called add binding context and show pop-up. So long story short, we got a lot of bugs and really just more complaints about this method because it didn't work as expected. So we've added the obsolete tag to it, or since added the obsolete tag to it. And in the .NET 9 PR, we are going to remove this now obsolete method. Don't worry, show pop-up and show pop-up async are absolutely still there in pop-up service. And actually, speaking of, I should do better documentation. Let's add in what to use instead. So we'll say use pop-up service.show pop-up instead. And let's add that down here. And the idea is we'll include all these breaking changes in the release notes. But this is more for us to track everything that's going on in this PR. So a couple methods are going away, but to be honest, for most people, they didn't work as expected anyways. And the workaround when folks would open a discussion or file a bug about it would be to use this generic overload instead. So these are going to be removed, but there's always a possibility to better implement it, better name it in the future. Let us know what you guys think, of course. We've also gone ahead and removed the ability to subclass from base converter. We did this with base behavior and a couple other base classes in the library. Like, what's another one? Like MAUI community toolkit. I don't know. There's a bunch of things that we use internally, but because they're base classes of public APIs, like all of our converters inherit from base converter, for example. So base converter also has to be public, but external support for it was never, I guess, provided is the right word. In other words, there's no documentation around it. We don't have any unit test suites around it. We've never defined how folks should use base converter. And have just kind of learned over time that people have started using it, which great. But again, in order for us to actually support it, we need to have docs for it. We need to have unit tests. And so again, this isn't the end all be all. We can absolutely open up base converter to the world. But what we want to do first is make sure that we define what it is and we have those unit tests to ensure we don't break anybody in the future. Hey, welcome, James. Holy cow, your keyboard's loud. I assume I was just typing. Here, we can pause real quick. How you doing, James?
I'm doing well, and my excuse for being late is I slept in.
I love it. So, James, just to fill you in real quick, the first item on the agenda was I think it was a PR for MediaElement.
Yes, I've been watching it.
Oh, well, okay. So yeah, we've jumped ahead to .NET 9, and we'll absolutely circle back to you next. But
Sounds excellent.
Yeah, just been talking about the breaking changes and hoping to get some feedback. Oh, George, good question. So George is asking how we found out folks were using base converter, even though we didn't intend for that. We found out because we basically did this breaking change in a previous PR for base behavior, where we found people were using base behavior and a couple issues and discussions were opened up around it. We're like, oh, whoops. Sorry, gang, like that's our fault. These weren't meant for external consumption. And in that discussion, also learned that folks were using base converter, but instead of breaking people in the next release, we figured we'd wait till a big one like this .NET 9. So if anybody out there is using base converter, feel free to reach out if you'd like to promote this to be usable publicly. But also in the meantime, the best workaround, just come in and copy paste our base converter class. Everything's open source, bring that into your repo so that your code continues to work. Or if you're not using any features from base converter, if you just kind of stumbled upon it, you can always just ignore it, use the same way that folks without base converter would create converters for .NET MAUI. Okay, so here is the big one. And I see, hang on, let me fix some formatting before we talk about it real quick, because let's see.
Nothing like live editing.
Yeah, right. Especially in Markdown, like it's beautiful. And I wonder, can I get this to take up more of the screen? I don't like it's, there we go. Woo. Now we're seeing screen. Okay, so this is the big one that will likely see the most issues arise from this. I absolutely understand this is controversial, and if I could go back in time, I would have recommended we never implement this in the first place. But the big breaking change in .NET 9 is to every behavior in the toolkit. Long story short, right now the toolkit will automatically assign the binding context of your behavior to whatever you attach the behavior to. So if you have a email validation behavior that gets attached to a entry, so you're watching you're watching the user's text come in to validate that it's a valid email address, turn it green when it is, great. What we have previously been doing is looking at the binding context for that entry and then passing that into the behavior. The reason I mentioned I wish we never did this is this was a carryover from the Xamarin Community Toolkit, but in .NET MAUI, behaviors don't automatically inherit their parents' binding context. We have some documentation on this in our docs already, and I've actually preemptively opened up a self-answered Stack Overflow question. So hopefully there's some Google SEO out there. So when people's behaviors stop working as expected for the Community Toolkit, they'll be able to find my answer on Stack Overflow. But yeah, long story short, in .NET MAUI, behaviors don't automatically inherit their parents' binding context, meaning when you attach a behavior to a label, you are also manually required to set that behavior's binding context to match the label's binding context. Normally, that's how stuff works in .NET MAUI. Like when I add a label to a vertical stack layout, for example, that label inherits the vertical stack layout's binding context, which inherits the contents page binding context. And so pretty much you can expect that, but not with behaviors. And the reason the .NET MAUI team doesn't automatically do this for behaviors is because behaviors can get reused. And this is especially gets messy when behaviors are used with styles, because styles get used all over your app. And if you have a behavior in there, then that's also getting reused all over your app. And some of the issues, in fact, that we've seen is because we were automatically assigning that behavior, then there was weird things happening elsewhere in folks' apps where they didn't realize that we, the toolkit, set the behavior for maybe the view model of their first page when the behavior was first added, and then later on that behavior gets reused on a different page, but it's still got the binding context of previous view model. This causes all sorts of weird edge cases and also can lead to memory leaks in the reverse direction if your behavior is still assigned to the binding context from a previous page that's been popped off the stack. So going forward, we're matching .NET MAUI. If .NET MAUI ever changes this behavior, then of course we'll get it for free in the toolkit because we, not surprisingly, use .NET MAUI too. But for now, we've got to stop doing it. It just became a workaround for a workaround for a workaround where we try to make things work. Like there's issues open. You can dig into them up here about like not working in a collection view, and that's because collection views they reuse data templates and the binding contexts are different. And so like when trying to figure out, okay, how do we work around for this now? We just hit a wall and said, you know what? I think the best move forward is just to stop. So this is huge. Tell your friends, tell your coworkers, tell your bosses, make videos on this, please get the word out, help us get the word out, because this will be a breaking change. And the worst part is it's going to be a silent breaking change. You won't get a compiler error because your binding context isn't set, because sometimes you don't need a binding context for behavior. But if you have any behaviors that use bindings, please update your binding context. We have our docs updated. I've got a pull request in to demonstrate all that as well. So all the documentation will be there. We'll include this in the release notes, but absolutely can use everybody's help getting the word out. Okay, less impactful breaking changes. We just renamed this enum. Long story short, unfocusing technically isn't a word. And the ing applies that it's still happening rather than it happened in the past and then we made the change. So you can kind of think of this change as like how we have the property changed event and we also have the property changing event. So wanted to realign these. So now they're validate on unfocusing will be renamed to validate on focus, and validate on focusing is renamed to validate on focus. And again, this is to better imply what's happening, because when the it's not until after that that item has come into focus will the validation happen. So it's not while it's happening that we do it. It has happened in the past, and now we're doing it. And again, more closely aligns with the naming behaviors behind things like property changed versus property changing. This one,
George has a point on that before we move on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, please.
But should it be unfocused with the ED on the end? A bit like properly changed.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Just to drop that in there.
Let's see. I'm trying to figure out. Cliff, can you take on that and just come in here and edit the PR? Because I would absolutely do it now, but I've got different screens going on, and usually Gerald's here to help.
Is it correct with the focused, or is it on focus? Don't want to edit this incorrectly, do we?
Yeah, no, I think that's valid. I mean, because again, the execution steps are that the element will lose focus, and that's what triggers the validation. So our validation is performed after that action is done. So yeah, I think it absolutely makes sense to add the ED. The only caveat I'll give there is double check that that's a real word, because unfocusing apparently wasn't in the dictionary. I'm sure I've used that word all the time, and I'm sure all of our developers didn't have a problem figuring it out, but it'd be silly to fix a spelling error early to introduce a new one. But thank you. Yeah, good catch.
No, it's a real word, according to the Oxford English Dictionary anyway.
Cool. Yeah, Cliff, if you could just jump into this branch and just do a find all and replace for it, because I'll bet there's some unit tests that will break if you just change that file. But thank you.
Editing can be so hard.
Oh man, it's the worst. Okay, the next one, community toolkit.maui.camera. We've had some issues opened up around the fact that the linker is removing the camera.core library. So long story short, if you've never heard of the linker, it's been around in Mono since the Xamarin days, and what it does is removes code that it thinks you're not using. And essentially the way it works is it looks, are you actually referencing a class from a library or specifically from an assembly? If you're not, or if it can't tell that you are because maybe you're using reflection to get there, it'll remove that from your final DLL, or in our case, the final app. So your Android app won't include this Xamarin Android X camera core library because the linker assumes you're not using it. But we are using it. So what I've added, and I'm not sure if this is going to work, which is why I've kind of slid it in here as a breaking change. It works for me locally. I've tested it out, I promise. But this is our first time adding some linker instructions, and there's some funny things you have to do, because if I was just in my library, you can very easily add this linker.xml file and tell the linker to ignore it. But we're in a NuGet package, so our NuGet package has to also tell your library that we also have a linker and to include that. So like I said, I've tested this out. I was able to use the camera in release mode with the linker on. So let us know if you hit any problems with this. Otherwise, we'll assume it works. And future bugs, because I think there's also a couple other bugs out there about another feature not working in release mode, maybe touch bar. I can't remember off the top of my head. But if this works for camera, then we can implement it in other places across the toolkit. So not technically a breaking change, but let us know if it works. What else? Oh, really small breaking change. Show keyboard async will, instead of returning a task, will return a value task. So this is a little performance bump, but if you are using this task that comes back instead of just awaiting it, then FYI, you're now getting a value task back. So adjust accordingly, but I imagine most people will just say await show keyboard async, which means there's no breaking changes to your code. Okay, we're also bumping some minimum versions as I was going through this PR, one of the reasons it's so big is I went through literally every file to add in some refactoring for performance improvements, and also to just do some cleanup. And one of the things I noticed when I was working through MediaElement is buried deep inside of a class, was a warning that said, hey, just so you know, this line of code can only be executed on Android 26 and up. But we didn't have anything in the code highlighting that, warning you about it. So what we've gone ahead and done is we've increased that minimum version of Android to 26. I mean, the current version of Android's 35. So this shouldn't impact many people, but do be aware of it. Likewise, with MediaElement and also with Camera, we bumped the minimum supported version of Mac Catalyst and iOS to 15. Again, the current version of iOS is 18. And
Just to
oh, go ahead.
To Jack, it does currently support from 21 to 30 to 34. It just, I had made some errors in some of the comments, or not comments, but some of the debug output it puts for like for when you're doing things. That's confusing. That's fixed in the current PR. It does currently support 21 to 34 in both Bane and also in Thing. But if you're on Android 13 or above, there are still a few output messages that shouldn't be there. I just haven't fixed them because I have a PR for Media 3 that will like basically that we've both gone over multiple times and basically fixed most of those bugs in. So duplicating them for again would be not make much sense.
Yeah, no problem. And yeah, like James mentioned, we're also going to be overhauling MediaElement, ripping out the guts on Android. Well, James already has. We've just basically, I've had to devote all my energy to the .NET 9 PR over the last month or two, so that we're ready day one. And we've had to put that on the back burner, but we will be coming in strong on MediaElement. Certainly, I think James has 4 or 5 open PRs, which just waiting for us. So be aware of all this stuff, guys. And I've also included, because we've added analyzer benchmarks. So, we have these analyzers that when you use our library, you have to say use MAUI community toolkit. And and if you don't, we'll generate a compiler error. And the way that works is we have analyzers we've created, custom analyzers. And a while ago, I did a bunch of work on these analyzers to improve their performance. And before I did that, I added these benchmarks. So because the benchmarks were available to us, I decided to post them here. I mean, they're pretty negligible, but did want to at least highlight this. So for example, we see a lot of like 11.2, 11, 17, and here in .NET 9 RC2, whereas in .NET 8, these were a little lower, 9, 9. This one was a little higher at 15. So super minor changes that shouldn't hopefully impact anybody. But again, want to share this information with everybody, be as super transparent as possible. Maybe there's somebody out there in the community that knows how to make these better. Always happy for that. But whew, that's it for .NET 9. Cliff, Vlad, what do you think? Or anybody in the comments? George, what do you think?
I'm very happy that we're increasing the minimum supported API for MediaElement. It makes some of the work for things like notifications a lot easier, because currently we have like many branches depending on what version and API you're on.
Agreed. Yeah, that was like as I was going through that code, James, and I saw this one line of code that it was being used by every branch, and it's like, okay, so I could add a if operating system is at least 26, blah blah blah, and it's like, you know what? No, like those operating systems came out over a decade ago. I think we can bump up our support a little bit without losing any customers out there. So great, less work for us. Okay, well, let's circle back because we skipped you, but now you're here. So James, we've got add support for local files, packages, resources to.
Yes, my main question with this is, at the moment we have a class called MediaSource, and using MediaSource, all of the functionality in there is exactly what we need for multiple different things. One example is for the artwork URL. This would work perfect for that too. But adding support for local files and package resources, I've done basically all of the work for that. I mainly would like to. The main issue I've had is the media source naming, which is, again, naming is hard. Media source basically has all the functionality I want. I'd rather not duplicate that multiple times. So I was thinking either A, duplicate it, or B, we could rename it and have a breaking change, and possibly have breaking change, because it will end up being used in 3 or 4 different PRs I have, if I can do that.
Okay.
Here's an example. Like, this is just like, without the rename, this is what I've ended up doing.
Yeah, so it sounds like this is something you'd like to get in first before the other MediaElement PRs. Is that right? Did I understand that order of operations correctly?
It would be nice to, because that way I can sort of like account for this in other PRs, because otherwise it ends up being a spaghetti code when I'm trying to do PRs.
Yeah, so no drawbacks, probably changing, dynamically updating. It sounds pretty good. Oh, we've even got some questions on it. Wonder what's it look like if I zoom out.
I tried to implement from Stream. That becomes an issue if anybody is not using local files. Remote streams.
Interesting, yeah.
Because that becomes an issue, because it wants to load the whole file from Stream. And there are ways to do it. It would, again, be not a small, easy to do PR, and would require significant amounts of testing. So this, as it is, would be pretty simple to implement. It would be just a few lines of code almost on each of the files.
Gotcha. And remind me, how's the code look today?
Oh, today I could probably merge it if we didn't change the name. I could merge it today.
Oh, sorry. I mean, like the existing code base that's been released.
Oh, this is designed for the existing code base, and it works fine with the new one.
So, is media source is the new class that you're going to create? Is that right?
No, that's the existing class. Sorry, no. Media source is the existing class. We're using it to basically name the source file right now. That's what everybody associates it with.
Oh, so these are all changes under the hood. No new public APIs.
Well, the public API is the media source, because that was the issue with the naming with media source.
Oh, this property is what's new.
Yes, that would be the new property, because I switched it from using a string to media source.
Got it. Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to confuse you there.
Yeah, I was thinking back to other, because I know we've had similar conversations around using media source. So nope, I'm caught up now. Okay, so it's a new property called metadata artwork URL. And okay, I see what you're saying, because you have multiple PRs that would implement this or leverage this, so we should merge this first. Got it. Okay.
So the issue is mainly the naming media source.
Is that? Sorry, you said there's an issue naming media source. Is that still?
Well, that's it. I think you were the one that brought it up to me. So.
Okay, I'm really sorry, man. All right, so this proposal adds a new API.
Yeah, for metadata artwork URL.
But you said you also want to rename media source
I don't want to rename it. I'm just suggesting that I want to use it as the type that I'm using. There was an issue with using meta artwork URL as a media source because it's primarily used as, titled media source. It's used as a source for the video URL at the moment.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, just reading it, I do think it's a little strange that this is URL and, media source allows like media source dot from resource and from file.
Yeah. So I probably want to rename metadata artwork URL. You're correct.
So
maybe metadata artwork.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. If the type is media source and the name is artwork.
Or we could just call it artwork. I don't know. It's one of those naming things again.
Yeah, but we already have a bunch of properties named metadata something, right?
Yeah, this is one of them. The artwork was one of the names, I believe, if I remember correctly. Currently, we have multiple metadata items, and one of them is artist, and one of the other ones is the artwork URL, the metadata artwork URL, I believe, because we use it currently notifications for artwork, and also as a poster on the background for when you have music.
All right, now I'm more confused. So we already have a property called metadata artwork URL?
Yes, we do. We use it for notifications for artwork. That's why basically right now it only supports URLs, remote URLs. It does not support files or resources. And this is mainly to add support for that, if that makes sense. And this PR is to generalize that so it supports all, so it supports not just URLs, that it supports local files and resources as an option for input, instead of just a remote URL.
Got it. So we have an existing public API called artwork URL.
Yeah.
And in this proposal, we would rename it to drop the URL suffix, and we would enable support for local files and packages.
Yeah. Local files and resources, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Cliff, Vlad, what do you guys think?
So I was fully listening. I was busy trying to get this working.
Yeah, I also totally trust James in MediaElement. To be honest, I haven't seen any PR about and don't know how it's really implemented.
This was
MediaElement, so I totally trust.
This was a proposal. It hadn't gone beyond the discussion stages yet.
So in the comments, George recommended artwork source.
That works fine for me.
But given we have a bunch of other properties that are also called metadata something, I think it makes sense to keep the metadata prefix. If we dropped it here, I would recommend dropping it everywhere. But I think for this one, yeah, like metadata artwork source. That sounds good.
Sounds good, yeah.
All right. Let's add a quick comment so we don't forget. For November stand-up, let's use metadata artwork source. All right. So I don't think there's any more we can do because we need at least half the team to vote to approve it. So why don't we do we'll do a remote approval, but given how crazy things are going to be in the next week or two with the .NET 9 release and squashing any bugs that pop up from that as hot fixes. I think that's okay. I don't see a huge rush here for this one. Okay, cool. Thanks, James. Yeah, just remind us in the Discord channel to take a look and give it a vote.
Okay.
All right, so this is a housekeeping PR that I want to share with folks. I don't think we're going to actually ever merge it, but I wanted to share it with everybody, share some context, and get a little vibe check around it, because this is a crazy PR. I actually had a lot of fun playing around with this. I've never created an MS build task before, but long story short, workloads suck. Workloads suck. The tooling and support just isn't there yet, especially for us as library maintainers. And specifically what I mean by that is when we upload the .NET MAUI workload that we use to build and release the toolkit, everybody who uses .NET MAUI and our library also has to update their workload version to match our version. And again, this is because iOS and Android move faster than .NET. So .NET 8 .0.403 added support for iOS 18, for example, or maybe it's 402. But if on your local machine you were still using .NET MAUI version or workload version 8.0.300 and you added in our community toolkit, your app's going to crash at runtime. And we saw just a flurry of issues opened up on our repo. I don't know if I linked to them anywhere here. No, I didn't. But yeah, we had a crazy amount of issues opened up with type load exceptions, missing method exceptions, all sort of weird exceptions that don't make sense unless you put two and two together and realize that the workload you're using to run your .NET MAUI app doesn't match the workload we use to build our library. And the reason I say workloads suck and the tooling's not there yet is because we solved this problem a long time ago with .NET, especially in NuGet package, because if you go to our community toolkit NuGet package, you'll see, whoops, that's MVVM. Let's community toolkit MAUI. Boop, there we go. So in NuGet, you can see what dependencies we have. And here it's very easy. You have to use our community toolkit at MAUI.core library, this version or greater, MAUI controls library, this version or greater. But there's nothing here for those workload dependencies. So, for example, what we're missing here is like .NET 8 Android workload version, whatever. So I don't know the answer to fix this. There's one angle that this is just education in the .NET MAUI community. Like, MAUI's still new, workloads are still new. Until Microsoft gives us the tools to require a specific version, then we just need to educate each other. We need to help out each other. Anytime somebody sees an issue opened up with a type load exception, a missing method exception, a not implemented exception, whatever, huge red flag to you that you're on the wrong workload version. I agree that in our PRs, in our releases, we should highlight the workload we're using and probably highlight that as a breaking change. So even though, for example, we bumped from .NET MAUI version, or the .NET MAUI workload for the .NET version from 8.0.300 to 8.0.403, that shouldn't be a breaking change, but it totally is. So I think we also can do better by bumping our major version of our library anytime we do that. But it still requires you, the community, to come in, look at the release notes, see the breaking changes, and act accordingly. So all that to say, I played around with a lot of this, and I figured out a way for this build task to run. So anytime you would compile your .NET MAUI app, if you had our library in there, our library would tell MS Build to check what MAUI workload version you're using. Now, the reason I left this as a draft and I don't want to merge it is this is very, very intrusive. This is basically going to cause a build error when it sees that you're not using the right workload. But also, let's see, did I include a link? So, but also there's a new way to version workloads that is hyper new, and I doubt anybody's even using it yet. So let's see, where could I find? I haven't looked at this code since I I opened up this PR. So here we go. So this would be the error message that would pop up. It would say, follow these steps to install the required .NET MAUI workload. And it would tell you, hey, you got to use your browser to download the latest version of .NET. And then once you have, you run .NET MAUI workload, install MAUI. And here, this -- version, this is a new way to version workloads. It was kind of a silent release in the middle of .NET 8. I forget exactly which version of .NET 8 this was introduced. I think 8.0.403, if I remember correctly. But another reason this build task kind of sucks is when you just use Visual Studio to install .NET MAUI, it installs all the workloads for you. And when you update Visual Studio, it'll update the workloads for you. But it doesn't do it like this. So this also means that even if you did have the correct version of .NET MAUI workload installed, that you would have to go back and do it again using version pinning. So like I said, it's a super intrusive PR that I'd rather not merge, but we have it in our back pocket. And the good news is we haven't seen an issue opened up since we figured out that it was a workload mismatch and started answering those questions. And also I went back in our release notes just to show you guys, I edited the latest release to include that we require Xcode 16 and you've got to be on .NET 403 and add a global JSON to make sure you're not using .NET 9 because .NET 9 uses a different workload than .NET 8. So all these things that are required are now included in the release notes, and we'll be better. I promise. I'll make sure when we have breaking changes and we require new versions of .NET or Xcode that we'll include it in our release notes. But until then, that's kind of the only tool we have as library maintainers, unless we want to just go thermonuclear and force everybody to manually update .NET and .NET workloads using workload versioning. So I'm really hoping Microsoft figures out a way for example, for like the NuGet packages to include a workload dependency, just like how they say like .NET 8.0 here. Like we need better for MAUI, the MAUI workloads as library owners. But in the meantime, we'll definitely include those in our release notes for everybody. But yeah, I want to share this with you guys to see what you think.
I can just add, dear viewers, if you watch this and do not want to rematch this intrusive PR, please update your .NET MAUI to the latest version.
Yeah, and you guys can let us know too, please, because the reason I'm doing it is I assume that this is too intrusive and the community wouldn't want it. But it would also reduce the need for anybody to need to read our release notes. You could just...
Is it possible to pin it so other people get implemented in their own projects as like a way to verify that that's their issue, or you could point to it somehow?
I have no idea.
Maybe someone would like to blog about it. The idea, like implementing it themselves, so that way we don't have to. That way, just not necessarily for this project, but it's a general thing. Like it's very useful to have. Yeah, and it's also brand new, right? So.
What's brand new?
Some of the things you mentioned in there are brand new changes to MAUI that you said not a lot of people are aware of.
Yeah, workload pinning.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, Microsoft has a blog post on workload pinning when it came out. That's how I learned about it on the .NET blog. But yeah, absolutely. If somebody wants to run with this and create a create a blog post, happy to give you some pointers. This is my first time working with MS Build tasks. It's weird because it's not C#. It's code that it's a lot of like XML code and weird things you have to do to get this into your build. But yeah, no, I think it's a great idea. I personally don't have time to do it, but would happy to give advice to anybody who wants to try it. Oh, sorry. Cliff, any thoughts on...
What's this one? Sorry, I'm still playing. I'm at a different computer and it's got none of my tooling installed. So I've been trying to do this search and replace the rename, but I'm having to install things like Get just so I can get it onto this machine. So it's a new machine. So yeah, so I've not been paying much attention.
Never mind. Yeah, keep doing that. That's more impactful. George, we blame you. You got Cliff going off the rails, although for the best reason. So thank you. All right, let's keep rolling. We are almost at the top of the hour. GitHub Actions, Vlad. I saw you added the label to this one.
Yeah, it's a long story, and probably it's waiting for Gerald. As you remember in our probably internal discussion, we are going to migrate from Azure pipelines to GitHub Actions. But the main question, when it should happen, and yeah, I see we have a lot of changes since I created this PR, 3 months ago.
Yeah, the .NET 9 PR's got some changes in the pipeline for sure.
So it's just a question. Probably we can just migrate it with .NET 9 and start using GitHub Actions, or we can... We'll see how it works. So I tested, it actually works. All our builds passed, all our tests passed. The only thing that needs to be changed and verified, we need to put in GitHub secrets, some keys that we used for signing. So only probably Gerald knows what the correct values for them. Yes. So just waiting for him for his response for that.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. And I don't know if this is the reason why, the main reason why we chose to move to GitHub Actions, but they use Macs with Apple Silicon, and the build times are insanely fast. Like, I think I saw it here actually. Like, let's see, build macOS 14, 4 minutes. In Azure pipelines, they don't have Apple Silicon as hosted agents yet, so everything's still run on the old Intel processors. Easily takes over 12 minutes. So I'm also excited for this.
Yeah, and also even for general users, for us, just to open it on GitHub, it's much easier to see what happened there without switching to Azure DevOps, finding some releases where it's going. Because actually, when I open it, it always asks me for sign in. I sign in, and it says that I do not have enough permissions. So for one error unauthorized, okay, I need to open it in private window and try again.
Right? It's just the worst. I mean, I agree. The developer experience where here, like, we can come, oh, the build failed. Why'd the build fail? Oh, there's the error message right here. Boom. Whereas when the build fails on Azure pipelines, you just have to get a link to Azure pipelines, and then you leave GitHub, and then you try to share links between the two and be like, hey, what about this? So I'm excited, man. I'll read through this PR once we've got the .NET 9.1 merged to bring in anything that we've been using in .NET 9 to make sure we don't miss that too.
Yeah, sure.
Hopefully this will fix some Mac OS errors that we get randomly on builds now.
Yeah, here I also saw some issues, and even now you can see we have some Xcode build error SDK. Yeah, because Xcode not installed, probably I just need to update it to 16 version
Yeah.
now. But yeah, I made some tweaks here. I removed some weird steps, probably some old steps that we had on our initial pipeline creation. So yeah, just reviewed some of the steps. Probably it's also another thing why our pipelines run faster, because some of the steps are merged. So like restore and build and publish, we in Azure pipeline we have these 3 steps here. I just merged it in one and actually work the same. So just we just the first release will be maybe a bit scared because who knows how it will work. Yeah, but yeah, we promise it should work one day.
Yeah, I think probably the best way, the most engineering way to go about this is because we can use both at the same time, or we can merge this while still having Azure pipelines, and both will run on commits and PR merges and all that fun stuff. And then we can kind of let them both run for a while, and just in case, like if we need to fall back to Azure pipelines for like something silly like NuGet package signing, then it'd be good. And then yeah, probably in our release notes we should note that like FYI, this is the first one using GitHub Actions. Let us know. Although if the NuGet package is signed, then everything should be fine.
Yeah, use on your own risk.
George's got a good question here. What about the code coverage reports? Do we also get those?
Yeah, actually we build and publish these TRX files, but I don't know if how it actually displays here. So it's included in builds, but probably we will not have really beautiful visualization of it. We can include these files in artifacts, so you can download it and open them in Visual Studio or any other IDE, but not sure. Probably will need some additional plugin for visualization in GitHub Actions, but as far as I know, it only displays like a console output.
Okay. Yeah, as long as we have the that report saved as an artifact.
Yeah, probably it can be possible on that page, where you have a build time or something like that. But yeah, I don't investigate it, at least for initial pipeline.
Sounds good. And I wanted to show. I need to find a PR that's actually passing, just in case anybody's curious what George is asking about. If you come into a PR and you look at the checks and you click on this top one that just says communitytoolkit.maui, they publish our code coverage here. So that's pretty. It's nice. But I wouldn't say that's a deal breaker, although I agree, George, I like it too. But as long as we have access to that file and we can double check it, then that's cool.
Yeah, if it would be possible to include it somewhere like here in Artifacts 3 and include it as another like label with at least 1% of past, yeah, would be nice. At least we can try to output in console, and maybe it will be just enough for now.
Sounds good, man. Anything else?
Yeah, Gerald, if you hear me, just
I love how many action items Gerald gets when he doesn't come to the stand-ups. He's very productive.
Yeah,
teaches him not to come, eh? Give me to Gerald. He's feeling a bit under the weather, isn't he? So we'll leave him alone, shall we? We'll be nice to him.
Nothing but love, Gerald. Although we'll still assign these to you.
As for subtitle support, we have one of two options. As is, it's pretty much ready to go. But I realize there is two things I did want to bring up. For for if we wanted to support more than a single subtitle file, the best way to go, I have actually 2 forks of this project. Right now, the one you're seeing is the one I spent like 6 months on customizing and creating from scratch a complete entire subtitle system that people can take and use. They can basically insert their own parser and just completely replace mine. Do everything from scratch. This is all manually done from hand by scratch. So basically, I created for everything except for Tizen, everything that's needed, all the support files required to basically just insert either an SRT or a BTT subfile and just have it work. Or B, our option is to basically discard 99% of what I just did and just have it, because I've already replaced it, but I've already done another version of it where it uses all the native libraries. But for iOS, there is no real there is technically a workaround, a hack that lets you do it, but there is no real native support except for with using basically a web version where you implement it using N3U8 URLs to just insert it, and it just works flawlessly for iOS and Mac. But my support adds all that features. The only thing it does not add is it does not add multi subtitle support currently. And the main issue is there's no buttons outside of my ability to directly manipulate them in, say, Windows, because I haven't yet figured out how to interact with the Android XML file or the iOS or Mac, because I haven't looked into the source code for the actual imported code. So yeah, I've only done that for Windows.
Cool. Nice work, man. And so it sounds like the way it would work today is the developer would pass in the what's called the subtitle file, and it will show up, and there's no way for the user to turn that off. So like the developer would have to both implement the ability for the user to toggle subtitles on and off, and if they have a switch or a toggle that says show subtitles, then the developer has to.
Yeah, they can just either pass in the file or not pass in the file at this time, and that was how it's currently implemented. Whereas with the native libraries, it has everything already done. So basically, we just pass in the file, and all the native controls would be there. Whereas with this, there are no native controls.
Oh, you have already implemented controls.
Well, I've implemented the native controls on a different. The thing is, in between the time this has been sitting here, I went and rewrote it a second time and just haven't done anything with it besides make it work. And it uses all the native controls.
Oh, interesting.
So that's why I put that back to draft, was because I wanted to discuss that. Because I basically implemented it, so now it supports multi-track. It supports multi-track subtitles on both Windows, Android, and for iOS and Mac, it so only basically does the same support and doesn't have any additional features. But for Windows and Mac, it does fully support multi-track, and there's a button that just works and doesn't require anything by us to do it other than turn it on in both operating systems.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I'd say, without having looked at any code and really having no understanding.
It's about a 9% reduction from this.
But yeah, if you've already got the work done, and I'm always a proponent of native over self-implemented, because we can let Apple and Google do the work for us. I think closing this PR and opening the other branch with the new code, it makes a lot of sense.
Okay, that sounds good. We can. Okay, I'll do that then. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you, man. And yeah, apologies, it's been sitting open for so long. You're
Honestly, it's kind of a good thing because I went to the time and got the actual proper implementation done, so that's good.
yeah.
I prefer to use native versus writing my own code because my own code is great, but it's not as good as 100 developers.
Most of the time. Sometimes. Awesome. Thank you, James. And yeah, you've been cranking out PRs faster than we can review them. So keep up the great work. And also, if anybody else wants to join the team and help us review James's MediaElement PRs, we've got a lot of work for you. Okay, speaking of James, speaking of MediaElement, what do we have here?
Updated transport controls for Windows. Basically, this just inserts new styling directly into. Basically, we're overriding the current styling, and it just adds all of the buttons that are there on Android.
That's awesome.
And yeah, I basically at first tried copy pasting the styling, didn't work, so I just went and manually did the styling from the base package.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, adding this feature looks.
It also
great.
changes the full screen icon, so we now have a full screen icon.
Oh, that's this one right here, huh?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I guess my only question is, speaking of native stuff, so Windows doesn't offer a media player with these controls on it then?
Oh, it does, but I mean, like, you gotta remember, like, if you were to look at the actual XAML controls library, there's like 6 of them, at least. And each of them are in different states. And the version that the MAUI grabs is the most basic one that doesn't have any of the features added in the last 3 or 4 years. Like, it doesn't have, like, well, the thing is they added, 3 years ago, they added support for full screen control without us having to do it. And it hasn't been added or updated since then.
Incredible. Okay, yeah. Then I'm in, man. What do you need for this to move forward? Or maybe we merge
just approval to actually create a PR. Like, essentially, the work is already done.
You're incredible. Vlad, Cliff, I'm thinking what we could do is add in the approved label here, just as a reminder that we've talked about it. And, well, unless you guys don't want to move forward with it, please say something. But I'm thinking we can add the label, and then, James, I'd say, since you have a bunch of PRs open, it'd be best for you to grab another maintainer on the team to partner up with for them to review. And
yeah, I was going to talk to Hugo.
Yeah,
I was communicating with him the other day, so
that'd be awesome. Oh, and in the comments, James, can you share those XML libraries?
Yes, I can do that. Yeah. For sure, yeah, I can do that, yeah.
All right, cool. We'll go ahead and tap that. And yeah, I mean,
it's on the Windows 10 SDK kit. I pulled it from there.
Cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, James, my recommendation is, let's see if you and Victor can churn through and merge the open PRs. Once we get .NET 9 merged in, there's probably going to be some there's most definitely going to be merge conflicts on every PR that we're going to have to go through after we merge .NET 9, which is just a fact of life. But for the workflow for this, James, I think we're good to skip the proposal process here.
Okay.
This feature technically already exists on iOS and Android. We're just kind of bringing Windows up to date. So, yeah, I mean, whenever you're ready, you could open up that PR and just point to this discussion. I'm cool with that. But yeah, it's existing PRs.
Yeah.
All right. Oh gosh. One more, James, and then sorry, not oh gosh to you. I just realized I didn't talk about the .NET 9 PR from Markup, but that one's shorter, so we'll get through that one quickly.
people want to be able to enable or disable the MediaElement foreground service because not everybody wants to use notifications. And it also is actually just causing issues with other people's services. And the thing is, we currently have a PR out, and basically, I want to hold off on this until after we merge .NET 9 and then also the media or the excuse my language, the new MediaElement PR for Media 3, and wait for feedback on that. And then once that's done, add this specifically because it is interfering actively with other people's projects and causing issues. There's a workaround currently where basically if they just don't, there's a media with the new the PR I have for Media 3. I'm not exactly can't remember exactly what I did, but basically if they don't include anything to do with the notifications, the service just disables itself if there's no data to display. So if there's like no artwork, no nothing, it's not going to show anything currently, and that's just there for people like this right now that are testing and need to have it not work. So this would be nice to have to be able to enable or disable it with like basically a toggle of some sort like being able to say, like MediaElement disable or MediaElement enable for the services or foreground services. Because that way that will just let people sort of have their own choice and,
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I love all that, James. I would say, drop a comment here, and I would recommend add in the workload, the workaround here in this comment to let folks know who also find this, how they can avoid it. And then, I would just also let them know that we've got it on the backlog right now. The plan is, .NET 9, Media 3, then this. But in the meantime, here's a workaround to help you out. But
workaround is currently in the PR.
You already have a PR open?
The Media 3 PR has a workaround built into it. Because it's currently a PR, I can sort of do things with that and it lets people test because a lot of people are testing based on that PR currently. There's like at least half a dozen people that have been bugging me to get that merged. But I keep telling them like I have to wait for people to review it and there's other things going on in the background and they need patience.
It's tough to be popular sometimes. It's a good problem to have. Okay, great. Thanks, James.
Welcome.
All right. Let's wrap it up with another .NET 9 PR. This one for the MAUI Markup library. So let's share this link here in the comments real quick. Okay, so this one has significantly fewer breaking changes, but again, wanted to highlight these. We'll also include these in the release notes. But what we're doing here is the big one that is probably going to be most noticeable if you're using these. Bind click gesture and bind click gesture and click gesture are being removed. We set these to be obsolete in a previous release. I think these have been obsolete for over a year now. And that's because we have a bind tap gesture and a tap gesture method. So these literally do the same thing under the hood. But I think the idea was originally click would be meant for like mouses or pointers. So Mac OS, Windows. But that never came to fruition. And if I'm being really, really honest, this is again just another carryover from the Xamarin Community Toolkit Markup library. So those get removed, but they've been obsolete for over a year. So hopefully that's no surprise. And they already have the exact same functionality available. And then the other big one is bindings have drastically changed in .NET 9. If anybody's playing around with bindings, they've gotten actually a lot better. They're a lot more performant. But along with that is the fact that string-based bindings, and this is a .NET MAUI thing, so this isn't just us. .NET MAUI and .NET 9 has essentially made string-based bindings obsolete, not recommended, primarily because they're not trimmer safe. So again, the trimmer, just like the linker, the trimmer will remove code that it doesn't think you're using. And when we use strings like name of my viewModel.text label text to point to the property we want to bind to, the compiler, the trimmer, nobody knows that this is actually pointing to this property. So there's nothing actually telling the compiler that this label in our view is using this label text in our view model, which is kind of good because that's how we wanted bindings to work. But the .NET MAUI team has replaced how you do bindings in code. Your XAML bindings this will all just work for you. The magic that happens under the screen to turn your XAML bindings into C# bindings is already taken care of. So it really only affects people creating bindings in C#. So the good news is you can always just say .bind and this is our recommended approach already, to use these getters, these lambdas. And this is actually the .NET MAUI's recommended binding approach now as well. They've implemented their own bindings that have very similar syntax, but they have some more goodies under the hood. They use interceptors, .NET interceptors, if you are familiar with those, to write some code for you also. But I am keeping these methods in the library. So if we look at the code here, you'll see that these methods still exist because, maybe you're not using the trimmer, and that's okay. But what you'll see is, let's see, is it this one? Yes, perfect. First try. So what I had to do was add this attribute. So this requires unreferenced code attribute is what will tell your compiler that if you're using this binding method with string-based bindings, that your code's now no longer trim safe. So this will bubble up to you. The reason I want to keep this in is because these type-based bindings, this method here, where you actually use a lambda and point to the actual property in your view model instead of just using strings and reflection, this method still does not allow us to use relative bindings. So the only way to do relative bindings with the MAUI markup library is to still use this method. So that's why they're staying in. That's why they will stay in until I figured out a better way to implement this. But FYI, so that's all that's changing. Bind, click gesture, bind, click gesture, and click gesture going away. But there's been tap gesture there the whole time that you should have been using anyways. And again, we've got some documentation updated as well. So, that is the latest for the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit. The plan, just to fill in everybody, similar to when .NET 8 came out, similar to when .NET 7 came out, our plan is to offer to publish the Community Toolkit the same day that these libraries come out. Hopefully we'll be able to do that, but just in case we don't, I want to show you what we're waiting on is we need a couple libraries to be updated. So I've got some comments here in this PR as friendly reminders to us to change things like, this is the MAUI package version, so we'll need to update that to whatever the latest version of .NET MAUI ends up being. And then there's a couple other packages. If we scroll, we'll find enough. So that's our Azure Pipeline build. So here's another one. So as you scroll through, you'll see all the packages we depend on that I've commented that we need to change these. So hopefully they all roll out the same day. If not, like the sample app is updated to use a couple pre-release packages. Whoops, I don't know what just happened. Anyways, yeah, the sample app's using some pre-release packages. Oh, you can't even see my screen. I'm sorry. I was showing. Doesn't matter. Our plan is
we were all wondering. We were all sitting there like, what's he talking about?
Anyways, whatever. Our plans updates have same-day support like we have for the last 2 years, but it all depends on when the libraries get released. Like sometimes what happens is .NET 9 comes out GA first, and then a couple hours, maybe a day later, .NET MAUI rollout. So stay tuned. We're going to have support for you. It's all queued up, but we cannot merge this PR because of there is a build error here that's not caused by us. It's actually been fixed in .NET MAUI from the engineering team. So once that's fixed, we can merge this PR, but hopefully it'll be the same day .NET 9 comes out.
Isn't that next week?
Yeah.
Next week, isn't it? It's well, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah, so last year, .NET 9 was released on Monday, and then .NET Conf kicked off on Tuesday. I'm sorry, last year .NET 8 was released on Monday, and then .NET 9 kicked off on Tuesday. So I expect a similar cadence, so I'll be watching this on Monday morning, and I'll jump on it as soon as I can. Or if .NET MAUI doesn't come out till Tuesday, we'll release it Tuesday, but coming soon.
Has anybody tested all of the packages yet for like camera and all that for whether or not they work?
So my plan, short answer, no, because we can't build the sample app due to that build error.
Okay.
Again, the .NET MAUI team added a bunch of source generators and interceptors, and right now they're generating code from our XAML that we can't do anything about. And the XAML's fine, and the team has fixed the bug. But yeah, my plan is once I can update this PR, I'll do it right away. And then I'll go through the sample app and click on every page, test.
Okay, because I can build MAUI from source and then build a sample app project separately, right? Like I don't see why I can't do that. It's just a task because I can test like MediaElement and camera and that, and get back to you if there's any like really huge things that need to be fixed, right? You know.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, I just didn't. I'm not able to carve out the time to do that. So, thank you, James. Yeah, and like I said, the only thing that could block would be something broken in like I don't know, a converter's not working, but I'll fix that everything right away as soon as possible. My whole Monday, Tuesday, my whole next week is dedicated to .NET 9 and .NET Conf. So no worries there. We'll get it out to you guys as soon as possible. But let us know. Keep us posted because, again, a lot of things changed under the hood in .NET MAUI and .NET 9. So like I said, bindings are totally different. There's a lot more source generators, and they've even implemented interceptors to hopefully improve our performance. AOT supports also, they're chipping away at that. So there's a lot of things going on in .NET MAUI and .NET 9. So as you update, as you try it out, let us know, please. We're here to help, here to fix it. But until then, we'll see you guys next month.
Yeah, that's a wrap. Yeah. See you soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.